everyone, good morning, good evening from whichever part of the world you're tuning into the podcast. Welcome to another episode of the GenAI CIO Podcast, where we cover the latest and the greatest in the world of GenAI and how probably it affects the CIOs across the world who are adopting GenAI. I've been joined in by Shiva, who's the founder of Liza, where they're doing a lot of interesting work from building agents to infrastructure to end-to-end applications, achieving AGI. Thank you so much for joining in, Shiva. Rishabh, the side founder of GoML, where we're building very interesting applications leveraging large language models and GenAI. All right, another great week, Shiva, in this episode number 25. But I'll start probably with the biggest one, which has taken the world by storm again. And why, I'm super excited about this news is because I think in one of the podcasts, and this was probably 3 months back when we were starting to write down, Anthropic, right, when it comes to other competitors in the market. But I think in the last 2 months, they've literally changed the way that probably people look at Anthropic, right? Last month, they launched the suite of, Claude 3, which was, a suite of 3 models that they had actually launched, and having been a user now, we've leveraged, Opus and Haiku across our implementations, are enterprise-ready models. But just probably yesterday, they took the world again by storm. They've launched the next version in less than 2 months, which is Claude 3.5. And the first model that they've actually launched in that suite is Sonnet. So Sonnet, if people don't remember, was first launched as part of the third version of Claude, which is the model from Anthropic, which they claim to be quite powerful and having actually used as well as pretty powerful. But the advantage that you get with Sonnet is it's a light model and can be used on edge devices like mobile phones, right? So the first model that they've upgraded in this suite is Sonnet, right? But then what's so special about this, right? So one obviously is, again, I have utilized it and I'll probably give my verdict, but 3 things that they're highlighting, which probably it is doing much better than the previous versions, is one, outrightly they're saying that it's much better than, or it competes much better at most of the standards with 4.0, right? GPT 4.0. But most importantly, it actually is good at reasoning, or it probably surpasses 4.0 at reasoning. Like reasoning tasks. Number 2, content generation, was they claiming is probably much better. And number 3, very natural language flow type of conversations where it actually understands sarcasm, human from users, and so on. These are the 3 things that Anthropic has highlighted. It's probably more, enhanced in this version. But my verdict, Shiva, definitely, this is one of the best models that have been hit, not only from Anthropic but overall. And I was trying it out. By the way, you can also try it out. It's available even to free users on Claude's website, as a chat agent, right? So the goods, right? The good is one thing I really found which stood out probably for the other models. It was able to understand humor very well, understand human and sarcasm very, very well, right? Number 2 is the content that it was actually generating, right? Was while obviously the accuracy is something that we couldn't judge at this early, but the flow of the content that it generated was very free flowing, very human like, right? It did not appear at all that it was actually written by a machine, right? So these are the 2 things that really stood out for me. And we've already gotten, you won't believe, sure, we've already gotten requests from one of our clients that they want to move to 3.5 from 3, right? So it's that level of adaptability, right? Just one last update on the release is they've actually released a new feature, which, we'll have to see how useful this is artifacts, which means that, today, obviously, when you generate certain content, on Anthropic or probably on the chat agent, chatbot, is you probably, it remains in the same window, then you have to probably create it, download it, edit it, etc. But whenever you now create a content, you'll be able to just have a private, dedicated window just to that content, and you can have multiple contents generated and continue your separate conversation, right? So you can just contain or edit your specific content in a separate window without having to probably launch another chat and continue in the same session, right? Again, how useful it is, we'll have to see, but brilliant update from Claude, from Anthropic.
Yeah, so kudos to Anthropic. Obviously, the fact that a lot of OpenAI team is currently at Anthropic is a massive advantage to Anthropic, actually, now that they were able to move really fast. And also, there is also the other talk that, knowing Sam Altman, who he is, GPT they might already have some better models already available. So the thought process is that, hey, GPT is actually, they always have +2 releases available with them because they don't allow the competition to be the leader of the chart for more than 2 weeks or something. So GPT will keep it so that they'll just launch it to go back like a small improvement types. But we'll have to see if that is really true. Sam Altman is absolutely possible. I mean, it's absolutely possible for someone like Sam Altman to do that, but we still have to wait and see if it's actually happening. But having said that, this is a great news for all the customers running on AWS primarily because
Absolutely.
I also saw Swami's post that now 3.5 is available through
On
Amazon
Bedrock.
Bedrock, which means right, all the enterprise customers running on AWS get to work with probably the best model in the market. And the other benchmark or I would say, benchmark study that I saw was that um, Claude 3.5 has got much better at apparently coding compared to previous model. So it's able to code as good as GPT-4o, which is another big plus for Claude. Especially again, I'm thinking about all our customers on AWS and all the other customers who are using GPT-4 as the primary LLM and Claude as the secondary LLM, as a backup LLM. From all those standpoint, it's a really great news for actually Claude. So to have launched
No,
it. So yeah,
absolutely.
exciting
But
update.
but I do have I will not say a take, right? And I was reading this brilliant article from Andrew NG, right? In terms of GPT's strategy and how it actually is working out for them, right? And I still feel, I think from accessibility perspective, right? GPT-4, and
Hmm.
I mean, I think it's about getting used to more so, but more so, I would say the interface that you have when I compare, the Claude chatbot interface versus ChatGPT interface, right? I think one obviously is usability perspective. I still go to ChatGPT mostly, right? Sure, might
Hmm.
change. But number two, I think one more thing is that they've given the capability to the developers, the level of capability, like building your own GPTs, right? As easy as it can be, right? Like what probably Android also allowed, right? From adaptability perspective, right? So I think that's another thing that probably, they are doing right. But then in that article, right, one thing that really stood out is that are they getting too late into this game, and especially with tools like Sora. I think Sora was announced what 2 months, 2.5 months back, but we've still not seen it in action. And since then, you've seen much more powerful models already in action, right? Like Runway also launched their own version, right? So are they getting too slow in terms of launches? While you likely mentioned, probably they do that, while the others are actually doing incrementally and getting more adoption, right, in the market.
I mean, could be absolutely could be. Why not? They might be slowing down. All the exits and all the other lawsuits might be distracting them. They're still a $3.5 billion ARR company. That's like crazy. As I mean, we know it's all early things, but if it's true, it's crazy. Let's see where it takes. It's good competition.
Absolutely.
The competition is keeping up. Probably the Llama 3 400 billion model will also come out soon, and that'll also keep up the whole thing moving. So yeah, I'm just excited for our customers and for ourselves actually. Yes.
No, absolutely. And as we've discussed, right, I think this year is mostly going to be different versions coming out market stable. I think next year is when we'll probably see some amount of consolidation happening. But speaking of competition, moving on to the next news, Shiva, and I think this is something that everyone was expecting, to happen soon, sooner than later is Ilya Sutskever, right, has started his own organization called the Safe Superintelligence Inc. Right, and he actually took to X to probably announce the launch of the organization of the new venture,
Hmm.
jointly with Daniel Levy, and he was actually part of the OpenAI team earlier as well, right? Uh, again, the major focus he's outrightly mentioned is that the company will not be driven by short-term commercial pressures to probably commercialize the whole OpenAI model. It's going to focus more on how do you build this more responsibly, right? That's the focus that he has highlighted. My only verdict, Shiva, well, obviously, and they've already started recruiting a lot of, top engineers. Obviously, I'm pretty sure India is going to go outright on OpenAI to probably recruit or get folks, right? But I think my only probably takeover here is that while probably a lot of this had started, like, what happened with OpenAI, what probably even happened with Grok, right? That we probably build this more responsibly, etc. But eventually, since the cost, as we've discussed in the past, is not easy to run or train these models, eventually there's some commercial model that needs to be developed. So I'm very interested and I'm really looking forward. I'm literally rooting for Ilya, but let's see how this actually takes up.
Cool, makes sense. That I
All
think
right.
there is a lot of buzz in the Twitter world as well, the AI Twitter world, I would say. A lot of buzz, but see, one is the idea, thought process, etc. The other one is the execution. Why, again, we'll
Exactly.
have to give it to folks like Sam Altman and the Amazons and Googles of the world is they were able to execute really fast. We also saw what happened with Inflection AI, where Suleiman was not able to execute and eventually had to give up. And same thing happened with, I think, Stable Diffusion as well.
Indeed.
So one part is good, the other part is the execution part. Let's see what happens there. All the
See,
best anyway.
one more, again, not to be very, negative over here, but see, one more thing is that in his earlier roles, like Ilya could probably go to the market and speak about, be very critical about the commercial aspect because he wasn't responsible for that in the organization. That dirty work was being done by Sam Altman, right? Similarly, with the Elon Musk, he was probably speak heavily about it because till the time he wasn't running the operations at Grok, right? Very interesting now to see when he's probably in those shoes. He's probably in those shoes. How he probably works in that matter. So just a side note, right? So yep.
Yeah, yeah.
All
Now,
right.
another
What's next?
news in the news of big corporations suing AI startups. Perplexity has joined. There are claims made by Forbes that Perplexity is not only misusing the data without proper attribution, they also are. I mean, the app also hallucinates a lot, which kind of misrepresents what Forbes might actually want to be saying. So Perplexity hallucinates and puts a very different data other than what Forbes has put in. This is contrary to what Arvind Srinivas and the Perplexity guys have been claiming that Perplexity is much more accurate than GPT, real time than GPT, faster than GPT, etc. Uh, and though he's acknowledged that these are the issues and they'll commit for better source visibility, the one key aspect that that Forbes is bringing out is a concept called there is this digital wall, like a robotic what to say access to protected data is not allowed. So, but Perplexity scraper engine, which was running on AWS, by the way, they were able to detect that. That Perplexity scraper engine was bypassing the protocol, and they were scraping the protected data, which is something that it's a big no-no, and that's probably the key thorn in this whole hallucination thing because I think GPT already was able to OpenAI was able to I think they've already won a case wherein it was judged that hallucination is a feature and not an issue. So even if Perplexity gets away with hallucination, the fact that the scraper engine went past
Yeah.
the allowed protocols of scraping protected content might put them in trouble. So yeah, this is a lesson for all other companies also, enterprise companies, startups, everyone who are involved in this data collection, data gathering business, to be extremely careful about what kind of data they scrape and how they scrape, and so that these issues don't come tomorrow.
So I think and I think Perplexity's claim to flame was sorry, what's wrong? Claim to fame was primarily, because they were able to give you, probably, you were able to get the source of the data, right, along with the information. So I think they are the ones who actually brought that concept to the market mostly, right? That was their claim to fame. Now,
Yes.
while I will not comment heavily on hallucination because I think you have spoken about this, I mean, expecting these generalized models to not hallucinate and be very accurate is too over an expectation. We've discussed that there are methodologies and techniques that specialized vendors and providers will have to probably work on, like, what we are doing today. But I think more from the, the data privacy perspective, but this is a paradigm that everyone is discovering. And I think I was highlighting this in the last podcast is that, and I was very surprised when I actually went and looked at it from, the Slack perspective, so how they're creating their bot, right? By default, it actually has, and it's a very small statement in their terms and conditions. By default, it allows, or it states over there, you allow to access your data, right? And what even Microsoft did with their tooling, right? So I really feel probably everyone would probably start understanding these tenets. But again, Microsoft has done this, Slack has done this, Google has probably been this whole issue, right? I think let's see how Perplexity probably navigates these waters now. But I will really not comment on the hallucination part, Shiva. I mean, that's one we discussed that needs to be controlled, right? Expecting these
Yeah.
generalized models to be very accurate is too
Yeah.
over expectation.
Yes.
All right. Obviously, none of our podcasts, I think, are possible without mentioning Elon Musk, but for a good reason this time, right? So, obviously, he's building Grok. I think he closed the biggest ever, investment 2 weeks back of almost $6 billion, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But what obviously now everything is coming into action. So what they've done is Musk has teamed up with Dell to probably build kind of his own data center, right, which he's calling his AI powerhouse to power something called as Grok 1.5, and they've committed almost close to 100,000 H100 GPUs to be bought from NVIDIA, right? And for people who do not know, H100 is one of the most not one of the probably the most powerful GPU engines or tensor engines that NVIDIA has launched till date. In fact, this is what has been powering or these GPUs are the ones that have been powering your self-driven cars and so on, right? So, so again, I mean, with all these announcements, it definitely feels that Elon is pretty serious about Grok, where it goes. My only worry is that, not worry, probably just on the right side note, but obviously NVIDIA is, calling it shots everywhere. They're probably the most valuable company now, right? From market
Yeah.
cap perspective. But I think in one of the announcements, Jensen Huang had clearly mentioned that they will not be able to manufacture more than 550 H100 GPUs annually, out of which they are committing 100,000 to Musk. So this deal must be very serious for him.
I mean, this is the power to get all the chips before the other party goes. This happened during the COVID era also, during the ZERP era, zero interest rate era, where
Exactly.
um, Facebook and Amazon and Oracles, everyone overhired in the Bay Area, literally, during I would say the work from home culture was running around, and eventually it all came crashing down. So it's a similar analogy here, but I think here they're going to stay long. I mean, GPUs, right? They run out of their lifetime in 3 years or something like that, or even lower. But yeah, it's just showing the world that they are collecting as much
Okay.
power as possible. This, in a way, also kind of reduces other competitors to come out. Like now, OpenAI will have to run around, figure out where they get their chips, and so yeah, I mean Nvidia. I mean everything is good for Nvidia eventually. They are like crazy. They're showing the world why silicon matters, why hardware matters actually. So that's crazy.
Agreed. But see, one thing that I have from this perspective, right, Shiva, is that Grok or XAI, sorry for that matter, has been in news, right, most of this year. But none of this news has been around the features, etc., right, of the
Yeah,
newer capabilities. It's mostly around what they're running, or probably what Musk is trying to do is leverage his own brand name in in the industry, right,
yeah.
globally, right. So I think what would be very, very interesting to see is how probably this is leveraged to build something which is much more capable than already proven players like OpenAI, Anthropic, Meta, etc., right. That's what I'm waiting for at least.
I mean, let's see. I mean, this is a race. Let's see where it gets to.
Yep.
Um, Next news: NVIDIA launches Nemotron 4, which is a 340 billion model, and it is primarily for synthetic data generation. And this is again, NVIDIA's strategy is always to do things full stack. They want their fine tuning, they want their LLMs, they want all of this to be full stack. So that's a strategy that has worked for Apple, worked for Tesla. NVIDIA, I think few weeks back, they also launched their chat bot for chatbot and knowledge retrieval apps. Again, if you see, they run locally on your server, but you need the NVIDIA GPUs, I think, to run them. So NVIDIA is kind of tying them together. Uh, the only thing that was missing in their full stack was the GPT equivalent model. I think they're launching that too. We just saw the news coming in yesterday, I believe. We'll probably cover that in the next podcast. So yeah, that's the update from NVIDIA. So they keep trying to become absolutely full stack. That's their strategy.
Which would be quite challenging for the whole world, right? Because, and I think this is an analogy that I've multiple folks have used in the industry, that while the world is planning or building flights, NVIDIA is focusing on building the runways, right? So I mean, and just look at the dependency, right? That everyone is more dependent on the likes of NVIDIA, or probably NVIDIA for that matter. But NVIDIA obviously is giving it as a platform. The moment they've crossed that bridge, right? I mean, it will be a behemoth to probably compete with, right?
There is no, they've already crossed way along, possibly. They already
No,
crossed it. They're just solidifying now. They're just solidifying their whole position in a crazy way, to be honest.
yep, agreed. All
Next
right.
up, Apple and OpenAI. It was rumored, but it is happening finally. In simple terms, now Siri would be a lot better because it's going to be powered by OpenAI, and it is a no cash deal, which is Apple will not be paying OpenAI for using OpenAI, but on the other hand, OpenAI gets access to all the data that users might be asking Siri. So OpenAI's conversation model will continue to improve. But to Apple, it's a massive advantage because now as users of Apple products, we will get to interact with a much smarter AI that knows its machine really well, which is the Apple system itself. It not be the vanilla GPT-4 API that we developers use. It will be obviously a version that is tuned for Apple. Apple calls it as Apple Intelligence. So that's a lot of questions coming in from a privacy standpoint. Given Sam Altman's stand on privacy, Elon Musk also kind of clearly highlighted that, hey, I might ban all Apple devices across all my factories because he knows, like, eventually there is a possibility that OpenAI might look into
Yes,
Grok's data or Elon's data, competitors' data. This crazy level of data privacy issues, right? Because people using Apple phones are there on Anthropic as well. People using Apple phones are there on Mistral. So now, I mean, I'm not saying that it is happening or it will happen, but there is a remote chance that OpenAI employees might be able to snoop into all the customers, all the competitor data.
all right. That wraps up the news for this week. Really appreciate everyone joining in, and looking forward to the next episode. Thanks so much, Shiva, for sharing these updates and joining me again. All right. Until next time. Thank you so much, everyone.